So that's why it's becoming more of a national security issue. Countries don't want to be bargaining, don't want to be making concessions. Just an example, if China has a 10% deficit in its food grain production, just 10%, that's equivalent to what entire Australia consumes. So if the market receives this news that China is going to have a deficit in its grain production, the global prices start to shoot up because they know they will come in the international market to buy them. And when I talk about these commodities, it's not just the commodity itself. Like I said, it takes 3,000 liters of water to produce a kilogram of rice. And when you export that rice, you're not just exporting rice, you're also exporting the water that went into producing that rice. And that's what's called virtual water. And this huge number that you see at the bottom of your screen is the virtual water trade. And 80% of this number is in form of agricultural products. This much of water moves between borders. It's produced in one place and sent into another place in terms of agricultural commodities, and that's what's called virtual water trade. Also, we have seen that there is a nexus between water scarcity, poverty, malnourishment, unemployment, civil unrest. All these things go hand in hand. So wherever you find semi-arid, arid conditions, you also find millions of malnourished people, and this is all, the driver is the water scarcity. That's where it all begins, and that leads to the incremental effect and adding up to illegal migration, youth unemployment, fragility, civil unrest, all kinds of problems originating from water scarcity. And I'm talking a lot about water. This conference is also all about water and climate change. Why do we care? There is so much of water around us, why do we care? Well, almost 97-98% of all the water is in the form of salt water that you find in seas and oceans. You cannot use that readily. You have to use some kind of energy to desalinate that water or make it ready for agriculture. What you have available as fresh water is only 2.5% of the total. And out of that 2.5% also, close to 70% is locked in forms of permanent glaciers and mountaintop snow. So it's not easily available to you to use it for any good purposes. So 70% of that 2.5% is also out of the equation. The remaining water that you have is soil moisture, it's groundwater, it's river water, it's lakes, it's all that fresh water that is available to you. And that water, 70% of that readily available fresh water at present, on average, worldwide speaking, is being used for food production. So this huge number that you start with, and a small fraction that is available to you, of that also 70% is already being used for food production. Imagine how everything else is managed with the remaining 30. And I just want to reiterate, it takes about a liter of water to produce a calorie of food. And every day, how many liters of water it takes for all of us to have food on our plates. Now, water scarcity is typically defined in two categories. Either it's a physical water scarcity or economic water scarcity. When we talk about physical water scarcity, that means the place is simply not blessed with enough water resources. It simply doesn't rain. There is no enough water resources, no lakes, nothing that can help bring the water to you. So Middle East, North Africa, Tibet Plateau, there are so many places which are very dry and naturally found in that way. The economically water scarce places are where you have water, but it's simply not available to you. There is a demand-supply gap. And why it's called economic water scarcity is that you can spend money to build infrastructure, to have storage capacity, to have dams, and you can capture that water and you can solve the water scarcity problem by investments. So when you look at water scarcity, you have to ask yourself, is it physical water scarcity that really cannot be managed, or is it economic water scarcity where you can invest and you can solve this problem? And this is a map showing you where we find physical water scarcity and economic water scarcity, and where are the areas that are approaching physical water scarcity going forward with the changing climate. This is just a trend over a period of time showing how different parts of the world have seen changes in per capita calorie supply. And you can see that The developed, so there is a flat line that you see at 2,500. That's what the WHO says you should have 2,500 calories a day. And then you have trend lines for South Asia, for Asia, for developed countries, and so on. And what you see that when the economic reforms started happening in Asia, there was a steep rise. And people started being affluent, people started having more food on their plates. Similarly for South Asia also, when Indian economy opened up, you see that there is a steep rise and they start approaching the 2,500 mark. Whereas the developed countries have remained much above the 2,500 mark, and they have been consuming a lot more calories than 2,500, and you see health-related issues that come with excess consumption of calories that are being reported in some of the countries. Whereas the sad part of this graphic is the bottom, the flat, almost flat line of sub-Saharan Africa. It has stayed much below the 2,500 mark. It has stayed that way for a really long time. Investments, technology, innovations, nothing has really trickled down to the smallholder farmers of sub-Saharan Africa to be able to produce enough calories to feed their populations. Although they are blessed with plenty of land and water resources, in spite of that, they have not been able to take advantage of these innovations in agriculture. There are many people here who are decision makers, who have been politicians, and they typically face this problem of farmers losing to the cities. If you are a decision maker, told to decide how to allocate water resources, then if you have 1,000 tons of water and you give it to a farmer uses it for giving it to cattle to produce milk, he earns about $550 out of this 1,000 tons of water. Whereas if that decision maker, that politician decides to give that same water to a steel factory, they produce a ton of steel with that water that sells for $14,000. There's almost 25 times difference between the two. It's so difficult because the steel manufacturing plant is paying taxes, it's generating jobs. The decision makers are inclined to overlook the farmers' need to meet these other sectors that are requiring the same limited amount of water. So farmer typically loses out to cities because there is so much more to gain when you give it to another sector than to agriculture. So the question becomes, do you really want to be food secure, or do you want to be economic prosperous and try supporting other sectors that can generate more value with that same amount of water? Now I just want to switch gears a little and talk a little bit about the bright side of things. You know, we can find 3G, 4G network in the most rural parts of the country, and even in the poorest countries also we are finding that there is cellular network available everywhere, and we should take advantage of it, and that's what we have been talking about, and you hear that. And so many things happening outside of agriculture sector, 3D printing, nanotechnology, Uber kind of business models coming up, which have not really made it into agriculture yet. So there is so much of potential in that. That's my colleague seated there, Chandra Biradar. He used to work with us. So we introduced what we call climate smart precision agriculture, and it is being projected, at least by McKinsey, that the digitalization of agriculture could be the third revolution. It could be the next disruptor in the field of agriculture. The first revolution happened when mechanization happened. The tractors were introduced, and a farmer could produce enough food to feed about 26 people because of mechanization. Then came the second revolution, which is the green revolution, which mostly happened here in South Asia, especially in India. And the same farmer was able to produce enough food from the same acreage of land for 156 people. And now it's being projected that on the same acreage of land, with digitalization of agriculture, the farmer will be able to produce enough food for 265 people. That's the kind of projections, that's the kind of expectation we have from the precision agriculture and digitalization of agriculture going forward. We have tried to introduce this because when you talk about digital, you talk about big farm, automated tractors, and GPS guidance systems, and large land holdings. But we have tried to customize it for developing countries, for smallholder farmers. For example, in Madhya Pradesh, we have tried to introduce this, where we have smart irrigation based on weather forecast. We have smart sensing, so we look at weather analytics and say these conditions are favorable for a disease outbreak, or we have motion activated cameras that take pictures of insects They do recognition of the image and they tell you which insect it is and which disease it may cause and what preventive measure can you take. And we have tried to introduce these kind of innovations here in India to introduce the concept of digitalization and early warning. Here's another simple innovation we have developed in Egypt. It's called the thermal imaging. So we take a picture using the thermal camera. We look at the temperature of the leaf, temperature of the air, and we look at the difference between the two to calculate how much is the water stress in the plant leaf and how much irrigation to apply. So these are simple handheld tools that you can give to an extension agent, you can give it to the water user association, you can give it to a farmer, and he can make on-the-spot diagnostics and decide how much to fertilize, how much to irrigate, and so on. Similarly, we have tried with Green Seeker, trying to take an NDVI measurement and tell if the plant is nutrient stressed. This is an example from relatively dry area. It's in north part of Iraq. This is the project we did with JICA, where we have steep slope area. We get only 300-400 millimeters of rainfall, and we try to capture these into these lined ponds, and then we use solar-powered micro sprinklers to apply what we call supplemental irrigation. In South Asia, we even call it as life-saving irrigation. So typically when the rainy season is ending and you still have a few months of crop growing left, you have certain growth stages which are very sensitive to water stress. If you apply just 50 to 100 millimeters of supplemental irrigation, that can double to triple your water productivity and significantly increase your crop yields. That's what we have seen in Morocco, in Syria, in Iraq, Iran, Turkey, and so many other violent countries. If you can bridge this demand-supply gap by having some kind of storage facility, it can help you improve your yield significantly. Here is an example closer to home from Rajasthan. This is the Thadeen system that we have worked with Kazri. In Thadeen system, you simply have in situ soil moisture conservation. You let the water seep in. What we have tried to do is capture that water into a lined pond and use it using solar drip irrigation to grow cash crops. So instead of marginal crops, we are telling the farmer you can use this water to grow cash crops, and it has significantly improved what we call economic water productivity. Rupees earned per cubic meter of water. So he has changed the cropping system and he has benefited from that. Here are a couple of more examples. On the left is an example of an innovation we have developed with MIT and Jain Irrigation. And it is what is called ultra low energy drip irrigation system. This is a dripper that operates at 85% lower activation pressure. If you look at a Netafim or a Jain typical dripper, it works at about 1 bar pressure or 0.7 bar pressure. This one works at 0.15 bar pressure. So you need a much smaller pump. You need very few solar panels. So if the farmer doesn't have access to electricity, if he uses a diesel powered pump, he can use these and he can start growing cash crops, he can start growing fruit trees. We have tried this in 6 different GCC countries as well as in Jordan and Morocco. We have tried with treated wastewater, we have tried with canal water, groundwater, and the results have been significantly good. On the right side, I have an example of sensor-based irrigation where we have introduced in Central Asia, in Tajikistan and in Uzbekistan, where we have a weather station. Using the weather station data, we calculate the evapotranspiration on a daily basis. We multiply it with the crop coefficient and we get the crop evapotranspiration. And on a daily time step, a water user association irrigation engineer has a spreadsheet in front of him to tell for every farmer how much water is the farmer losing each day, and he solves the water balance on a daily basis. And then you have set a trigger, and there is a trigger. If you see the red color circle on the top right, that's what it says, begin irrigation. So the water user association guy just sits in front of the spreadsheet and he knows on a daily basis which farmer needs how much water in which sequence. So there is no problem of equity, head versus tail distribution. It's very fair, it's very simple way of doing things. Here is an example we have developed with our FAO colleagues present here. So we have Atif and we have Domiti here. This is the Middle East, North Africa Regional Evapotranspiration Network. This is a network of eddy covariance flux towers that we have in different countries to measure actual real-time evapotranspiration from a variety of crops. on a variety of elevations, from a variety of sources of water. And when you have this database available, you can use it for validating remote sensing products, you can develop your own crop coefficients, you can validate your crop models. So it's an international public good and a dashboard that we have developed. Anybody who wants actual evapotranspiration from these countries can go to this website and then download this information. It's available for 6 countries, and end of this year we will have it for up to 10 countries available. I can skip this one, but I would like to talk about what we are trying to introduce, our profitable diversified cropping system. Typically, you have farmers growing cereal after cereal or cereal after legumes, and the productivity and the profitability of these systems remain low. So if a farmer grows, say, wheat after wheat, he earns about $600, $700, $800 a hectare. When he grows lentil, then also he makes around $600 to $700 a hectare. But using that same amount of water, that rainwater that you have, if you introduce intercropping, relay cropping, and you add a cash crop, your economic water productivity goes up significantly. Quinoa, lentils, and beans, and we have seen instead of making $600, $700, $800, now farmer is making $11,000 to $12,000 per hectare because of this introduction of an intercrop or a relay crop. It is a very short season, very small water requiring, very low environmental footprint crop that you can add and increase the profitability for the farmer. On the right side, I have a table which is from the Indira Gandhi Nehar Pariyojana, IGNP in Rajasthan, where we look at different cropping systems that farmers follow. You have cotton, wheat, cluster bean, you have mustard. We looked at different farmers following different crop rotations, and we looked at physical and economic water productivity for these systems. And we found out the one cropping system, the cluster bean mustard one, which is most economically water productive, means farmer makes most profit and it requires least amount of water. This is a huge knowledge gap that is missing here, is that people don't look at how much profit you make per unit water. You always look at kilograms per hectare or dollars per hectare, but you don't look at dollars per millimeters or cubic meters of water, which should be really looked at, because water is the limiting factor of production in the dry areas. So I'll move to my last slide. I think, I should conclude. So we have to accept that there is no going back on some of the climate-induced changes that we are witnessing. They are irreversible. We have to live with them. And secondly, the dry areas are simply not blessed with enough water resources. We have to acknowledge that. There are physically water-stressed areas. The efficiency gains, the investments can solve the problem to a certain extent, but it won't eradicate the problem completely. So we have to accept that also as a reality. But there is a young aspirational population. Youth is getting interested in agriculture because of all these transformative changes happening in the field of digitalization of agriculture. Youth want to get engaged through drones, through smartphone application, early warning systems, smartphone applications to rent tractors and stuff. So hopefully that could bring a transformative change in the field of agriculture. And we at ICARDA, along with our CGIAR partners, are trying to bring these kind of innovations, trying to contextualize them, trying to simplify them, trying to build the value chains around these and develop business models for these countries, and hopefully we will be able to succeed in that. That was my last slide. These are just our collaborators and donors whose works I have presented here. And with that, I will stop talking. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Vinay, for your excellent and exhaustive presentation on climate change.
Out of that also in stuck, and finally we end up getting only 0.3 to 0.6% of the fresh water. And with so much of scarce water, how we can intervene and do certain intervention to lead to surplus. You can see that the fresh water availability is very bigger, and already people are facing, every third person, one among third is already facing this water. And the global shortage, shortly what it is now and the demand, if you compare, there is going to be about 40% by 2030 is going to be the shortage in the freshwater demand. So now the global shortage is about 5%. And this shortage is multiplied more so because the urbanization is increasing by more than 70% in the urban area, and you know how difficult it is to provide the infrastructure facility and more so the water infrastructure in the urban areas. And this trend is continuing because a lot of people are migrating from rural areas to urban areas, and people are also deviating from the agriculture or the water sector to better place, working environment, sitting in an air-conditioned room and a software side. So this is rapidly multiplying the demand for water. And as you know, food and energy is also increasing parallel with the population increase. And shortly by 2030, there is a study showing that there is a shortage of energy as well as food, because you know that water, energy and food has a strong nexus between all of them because they are all interdependent. So how to address this 50% food and energy requirement? As you can recall the Vinay's presentation, most of the decision makers focus more on the economic prosperity, not bothering really about the water scarcity, because unless food is secure, any amount of economic prosperity would not mean anything. So the great onus is on the agriculture sector, where water is being consumed more than 80 to 84% globally, and it is more in the Indian context. More than 86% of water is being in the agriculture. So we need to focus how this small amount of water is utilized to meet all the challenges that we are going to face. And I don't discuss too much about the quality. You know that quality is also getting degraded because a lot of untreated industrial waste or the domestic waste or the urban drains are getting into our water bodies, and that has led to the pollution of our water bodies, and that has become a major concern amongst the small quantity of water that is available. And that is also getting polluted. So now you can imagine how important it is for us to protect this small amount of water to meet our ever-increasing demands. Okay, now let us see the urban water bodies. As you know, this is the famous the day zero was there in the Cape Town, and let us not relax and be at our comfort level, that shortly in India also we may likely to face this zero water day very shortly in the coming, maybe in a decade. Chennai would be the first hit, which already had a couple of years back, and Delhi is the next one, and maybe it come to Bangalore and Dharwad slowly. So doomsday is not too far unless we change our way, unless we change our as usual business application in the water sector. So all of us have to think boldly, and the seminars like this probably can show on such things. And water availability in different countries. One alarming stage is Brazil has the highest per capita water availability, and you can see India is having somewhere about 1,500 cubic meter per capita available. There also India lags very much compared to other countries, and this is where India has to be really looking at the options available for this challenge to be addressed. So water availability in India is the lowest. And what is the lowest? And in now, you know that the total precipitation in India is about 4,000 cubic meters, and out of that, economically available water is only about 1,000 BCM, and groundwater is again distributed into the surface water available is only around 690 billion cubic meter. What is available? This is the only available water which was as per the survey in 2010, and this comes from one alarming thing. What you can see is, are we deprived of the rain? Because all the surface water and groundwater is coming from the precipitation. But we have enough precipitation, but the only thing is, are we able to address and make use of the entire precipitation, which is almost 4,000 billion cubic meter, and we see some of the slides where are we utilizing this amount of available surface water and groundwater. Now what you can see, even the groundwater is getting depleted very fast because there is a lot of extraction from the groundwater, and even for recharging of the groundwater we depend upon the rainfall and the precipitation. But the climate change has a greater impact on the availability of water through the rainfall. So because of that, the weathers are changing very fast, temperatures are changing very fast, and the rainfall is very erratic temporally and spatially also, and that is what is the greater challenge because of the climate change. And in India, you can also see the water availability over a period of time. Now we cannot sit back and relax. It is a high time for us because the per capita which was available about 5,000 plus cubic meter per year per head about 50 years back has now come back to almost 1,100, and we are slowly becoming the water stressed, and days are not too far where India is also becoming the water scarce country. So per capita water is also decreasing, and how we can address this challenge is a greater challenge. And in India, again, the 50% is going to be the gap between the demand and supply in the next couple of decades. By 2050, we need more than the double what is available today. But unfortunately, we are unable to augment on the supply side because all the challenges can be addressed, one on the supply side, another one is on the demand side. But there is hardly anything what we can do about on the supply side. And my focus is more on the demand side, how we can beat this challenge, focusing more on the demand side. So the gap is again increasing. As of one of the studies done, it is 50%, but we are not sure whether it will remain at 50% because the way the population is increasing is very fast. And against that demand, the gap, we are unable to utilize even the available water. What you can see is, I'm focusing only on the irrigation sector because a small incremental change what we bring in the agriculture sector can probably bring in a tremendous amount of change in the other sectors as well. So what you can see is the available water is also not being utilized because there is always a gap between the conception of the irrigation project and the time that we end up giving water to the farmer. So this huge gap has led to a tremendous amount of gap in the potential created and potential being utilized, and that is about more than 25% in India. And what are the sources? You can see the precipitation of irrigated area is majority of irrigation is being done through the tube well and the tanks and other things. But surface water, hardly about 30 to 40% is being taken by the surface water, but majority of the irrigation in the small holdings is
आशुतोष जी, उसको जरा आवाज देना।
groundwater that we want to see here in the picture. So one study says that 78% of irrigated water is being ground surface water. 78% of surface water is covering only 50%, whereas groundwater, 22% of groundwater is covering the balance 50%. This shows that groundwater irrigation is more efficient compared to the surface water, and that sends a trigger for all of us that we need a lot of things to be done in the surface water irrigation. And this is what it is. And about 30 to 40% of surface water is being carried through the canals. And there are intrinsic problems with the canal, open canal water supplies from irrigation. Let us see that. And this is the condition of most of the irrigation structures because many of the irrigation structures have been built in India at least about 50-60 years back, and now all of them require the retrofitting, and the condition of conveyance is absolutely bad. And this is the status in most of the developing countries. So we all need to focus about how to retrofit this aging water sector or aging infrastructure in the irrigation sector to address and enhance our water conveyance efficiency and in turn lead to the better water use efficiency. So the deteriorating infrastructure is another challenge what we need to be addressing in this. And I would like to show some of the intervention what government of Karnataka focused in the last one decade. and one of the project is the surface water open canal. And another challenge in the surface water is, you see most of the open canal do not have any measurement system. Unless water is measured, we are not able to really manage it. When there is no measurement, there cannot be any management of water. And this is one of the crucial issues what
but a lot of the millets are rich in nutrition and the pulses. You have to switch to that one. Just giving the being coming from my region of the dry areas in the Bijapur, so where my hometown, and just looking at the sorghum and the horse gram. These two combinations, the super rich nutrition climate resilient crops, we call them as horse gram, but it's a rich nutrition. We are always misleading the people that want chickpea, horse pea, cowpea. Why not bring it into the cereals? And even like a millets, you call it trunadanya, or you can call it the minor millets, but they are super rich nutrition. Thanks to government of Karnataka pushing the entrance level of the millets, because the government is pushing the entrance level to make it happen. I think that's why we need to be talk about the millets in agroforestry. These are the crops, water efficient, light use efficiency. They can best fit into the tree-based systems. You have to bring the more millets in farming systems, and also get the meat of the agroforestry. Often we call agroforestry long gestation period. No, even first year itself we grow a lot of the crops together. So this is what we need to bring the system level approach. Why tree-based systems? I talk about with the rainmaking to nuclei to increase the rainfall to the carbon sequestration to water security, and it's addressed many other things. I know it's time is very limited. So how many questions? Couple of minutes? Okay. So I know I'm rushing very fast. Just to I not want you to miss the next session. So excuse me for that going very fast. But this one picture I would like to show here. The second picture, when I visited my town in Bijapur, there was very dry spell, long distance, they declared as a drought-prone area and emergency. But I looked at the satellite. Is it true? I saw some picture of very green spot. Even the 6-month dry spell, some spots are green. I just drive my vehicle to there. I found that those are the tree-based systems. They are the agroforestry. They are farmers. We called it one time that they are the neglected farmers, that laid-back farmers. They're not adopting the modern technology, modern rice, modern irrigation system. These are the farmers practicing very happily, growing their old traditional crops, growing their pulses, growing their trees, they're integrating livestock together, and they're just happy. When there's more rain comes, there's no problem. There is long the drought, there is no problem, because of the build the system, they absorb the rainfall. They hold the water in their farm itself, rather than going away from. I give an example earlier in my farm. With whatever rain happens this one, and that rain shouldn't be the flow on the surface. It has to be absorbed. After 3 to 4 rainfall, it trickles into the streams, what we call the spring sets. We talk about Himalayas, the ice-fed and snow-fed rivers, but we come to the tropical bed, like southern India, it's the forest-fed rivers, the tree-fed rivers. We need to bring the spring sets back into agricultural systems. I remember when a child, we go to our farm, there's a water trickling the road, there's small streams flowing. We used to drink that water without any hesitation. Do we have that system left now? Any stream you look into the India now, you can able to take a water and go drink straight away? No. The moment you reach that stream, the flowing the clean water, we can drink without any hesitation. I think that we reach the water security. That's what I call the water vision 2047. I think the huge capacity with that one, we can live with that one. We talk about a lot of the problem, but a lot due to factors because of their recycling agents. Take the crop residues. We take any technology, composting take 3 months to 6 months. A cow can make in 24 hours. That's what our livestock integrated system to move away from the conventional approach to the ecological approach, bring the food security, bring the rural and periphery, and also the urban area. This is the home. So growing about the 50 types of fruits and vegetables in the backyard. So this is where the real heat absorption, there is the heat island impact. I think these solutions are everywhere from the cropping system, integrating the different crops along with the cotton model I will talk about, and all the other issue of the further is here, the Vice Chancellor. And we are the agriculture graduate, we're producing so many agriculture graduates. And the graduates, we teach 4 years before to the farming, the graduate they not want to go to the farming. That is the irony of our education systems. How to make a system. This one guy came to me that said, I have lost the job, so what can I do? You have the land, this is African land is there. Adopt the natural farming, system approach, and put all the investment doing it, what is the return? We make 2 lakhs per acre. System is there. We need evidence-based scaling. Scaling is very lacking because of the no monitoring. How to address that one. So move away from the regional agriculture to regional agriculture, water security automatically addressed. That's become a default. So technology enough is there, scaling is required, and return of investment is required because of tree-based system, the 18 to 30 times more return. We signed the recently the agreement with Dharwad. They buy the buyback guarantee from the farmers. We are implementing 7 states. So that farmers switch to the tree-based system, there is a buyback guarantee. So that my last slide is talking about the vision 2030. By 2030, at least 30% of the populations in their 30% landscape switch to their 30% the food plate tree-based system, that the fruits, vegetables, nuts, and other condiments coming from the tree-based system. I think that we reach the pre-industrial era. If you look at the 50%, that is the pre-Vedic period. I think this is what we talk about the health. One health means just not health of the people, health of the entire ecosystem. I think this is what I conclude my slide. Production follows functions. We have to build a living landscape, a functional landscape with all the advent of technology, citizen science, food wisdom, bring the system back to the place. That should address the water security. Thank you so much.
Declaration we heard too. I just want to suggest one important aspect that is relating to some fundamental change in the way agriculture is practiced. We compartmentalize mitigation and adaptation. I feel that the steps towards adaptation and mitigation blend with each other. There has to be a seamless transition from mitigation to adaptation. Now, world over, we have made adaptation as the priority of the advanced countries, who obviously have contributed more to the greenhouse gas emissions and made mitigation, adaptation, as a responsibility of the developing world. Now, knowing that climate change is the cause, is the result of the emission of greenhouse gases, which is linked to use of fossil resources, coal, petroleum products, minerals like iron ore, bauxite, copper. These are the resources which have driven the industrialization of the world over the last 2 to 3 years. And we want to put a stop to, not to put a, at least minimize the emission of greenhouse gases. And therefore, we have begun to talk about alternate resources. That means shifting from non-renewable resources to renewable resources. I therefore feel that the agriculture sector, including forestry, can generate renewable resources which can serve as a feedstock for a new industry to become the basis of a new economy called bioeconomy. Let us take the case of fuels. We have been depending on petroleum products, coal, forestry sector, but to that extent, we will now more or less declare these fossil resources as no-go areas, particularly those lying in the forest areas. Unfortunately, as we are exhausting our resources, we are going into the forest and destroying the natural forest. So I would suggest that as a part of the climate change mitigation and adaptation, the world should opt for bioeconomy based on new industrial production system which is linked to alternate sources of energy. And as you know, India has been taking the lead in solar energy. In fact, Honorable Prime Minister of India has committed himself to Solar Alliance. So every country can take that lead, and we are happy that USA, for example, has
Karnataka, so many issues are there in the entire state. So there should be amicable settlements regarding this water disputes, water sharing disputes. Then regarding water management, that will be a good thing, and water management will reasonably we can execute it. ಅದಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾದ ಡಿಸ್ಪ್ಯೂಟ್ಗಳನ್ನ ಇವತ್ತು ರಾಜೇಂದ್ರ ಸಿಂಗ್ ಅಂತವರು ಏನದರಲ್ಲಿ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ವಾಟರ್ ಬಹುಶಃ ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾದಂಥ ಡಿಸ್ಪ್ಯೂಟ್ಗೆ ಒಂದು ಅಂತಿಮವಾದಂಥ ಅಧ್ಯಾಯವನ್ನು ಆಗ್ಬೋದು. ಇಲ್ಲಿಕಂದ್ರೆ ಇವತ್ತು ನೋಡಿ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಟ್ರಿಬ್ಯುನಲ್ ಅವಾರ್ಡ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಗೋವಾದ್ದು ಮಾದಾ ಇಶ್ಯೂ ಬಗ್ಗೆ. ಅದಾದಮೇಲೂ ಸಹಿತ ಇವತ್ತು ನಾವು ಡೈವರ್ಸಿಟಿ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ಅಪೋಸಿಷನ್ ಬರ್ತದಂದ್ರೆ ಎಮೋಷನಲ್ ಇಶ್ಯೂ ಆಗಿಬಿಟ್ಟಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಆಯಾ ಸ್ಟೇಟಿಗೆ ಎಮೋಷನಲ್ ಇಶ್ಯೂ ಆಗಿಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾವೆ. ಆ ಎಮೋಷನಲ್ ಇಶ್ಯೂ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ರಿಯಾಲಿಟಿಯನ್ನು ನಾವು ವಿಚಾರ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ನೀರನ್ನು ಬಳಕೆ ಮಾಡುವಂಥ ವಿಚಾರ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಬಹುಶಃ ಇದಕ್ಕೊಂದು ಪರಿಹಾರ ಸಿಗಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ. ಆ ಕೆಲಸ ಆಗಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ ಅನ್ನುವಂಥ ಮಾತನ್ನು ಈ ಸಂದರ್ಭ ಹೇಳಿ, ಈ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ವಾಲ್ಮೀಕಿ ತನ್ನ ಒಂದು ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿ ತನ್ನ ರೋಲನ್ನು ಪ್ಲೇ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿನ ರೀತಿ ಹೈಲೈಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು ಅನ್ನುವಂಥ ವಿಚಾರವನ್ನು ಈ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಿ, ಅದಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಇವತ್ತು ಭಾಳ ಸಕ್ಸಸ್ಫುಲ್ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಆಗಿದೆ.